everybody, Pete Bludworth with Corrections Unfiltered. The podcast that we're recording tonight is going to be one of the most raw and emotional podcasts that we've done. It's going to talk about the mental health challenges that new employees or any employee in corrections might face somewhere along in their career. We're going to talk to Ben Moore. Ben Moore is a correctional officer who, like the rest of us, joined corrections because he had a call to it. Ben started his career at corrections. He began experiencing the different types of emergencies, the different types of inmate behavior, the different types of crises he was responding to. It began to take its toll. Now, if you're having these types of ideations, you're having these character changes, or people are pointing them out to you, there's a phone line you can contact. You can text them or you can call them, 988. It's the National Suicide and Crisis Helpline. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can give you the help, the support that you need to start making the changes, the positive changes, and you'll find that Ben made those also. Ben's road wasn't easy. It was a tough road, but he took the road and he got to a place where he's doing much better. So let's get into this podcast and hear what Ben has to say. Well, good evening, everybody. We have Chris McConnell. We have
Hello.
Sandra Hijar-Leydon.
Hello.
We have Mr. Charlie Bueno.
Yeah.
And our special guest tonight is Ben Moore. Ben's a correctional officer. He's got a lot of experience. He's moved around quite a bit. So, Ben, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit about your background and story and what got you here tonight?
Sure. So I actually started out in the private sector. I worked at an institution for about 6 years. Prior to that, I actually worked with juveniles for about 1.5 years, give or take. I currently work for the state, where I've been there almost 2 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was correctional officer starting out, obviously, at the private institution. Worked my way up to sergeant, lieutenant, and I left there as an assistant unit manager.
I understand that you had a journey that you went on with facing some of the different challenges and things that corrections brings. Do you want to go ahead and take us down that road?
Sure. So I think backstory is a little bit important to mine. I think I had a different upbringing than a fair number of the general population has had. Growing up, I grew up in a very small village in Ohio called Salineville. My parents worked in ministry. They had a group home for disadvantaged youth boys. They had that for 22 years, had over 300 kids in their care throughout those couple decades there, anywhere from the ages of 8 to 18. And they could have anywhere from 5 to 15 boys in our home at the same time. We all grew up in the same farmhouse. So that kind of introduced me to the corrections atmosphere a little bit at a young age. I don't have any memories before that. That's all I know growing up. My dad would do prison ministry. He went out to the Old Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio. He did jail ministries. He did things like that. And they could get a call in the middle of the night that a child is in an abusive home or something like that, and they would need to be in their care. So it could be anything from being in an abusive home to parents who are drug addicts to this kid's severely behavioral issue. Kids that were heading down the route to going towards jail and prison, they tried to intercede with that. So that introduced me at a young age to different variations of the correctional system, even though I didn't necessarily understand it at the time. But I think it's given me a little bit of an advantage in corrections, and formed me into who I am today.
Ben, of course, welcome to Corrections Unfiltered.
Thank you.
I've said it once, and I'll say it again tonight. Corrections is one of the most complex and challenging professions in public safety. Mm-hmm. But that service over self can come with a cost. And I'm talking about the pressures on the job and being exposed to extreme violence and traumatic incidents over and over and over. Homicides, stabbings, suicides, overdoses, assaults, self-harm, threats, manipulation. Now, studies are showing staff are internalizing and not properly processing the exposures of these incidents, leading to high divorce rates, depression, heavy drinking, thoughts of suicide, burnout, chronic acute PTSD. From my understanding, you've experienced some of this as well. What led you to finally reach out for help, and what kind of support did you find out there? wellness programs, professional or spiritual type help, medication, support group, lifestyle changes, just basic awareness? What helped you?
Sure. So I kind of fell into the conventional prison system as far as working. I just applied online and ended up getting the job like a lot of us do. Didn't really know anything about it. So I didn't know a whole lot about the things that happened on the inside. Obviously you see movies and you see TV shows and you assume that there's some truth to it, and then there's Hollywood added to it, which is true. Um, but within 6 months to a year into my career, when I started, I was placed. My post was segregation, um, and it wasn't a bad spot to work, but segregation, it is what it is. That's where you put the guys that are the behavioral issues on the compound, and then you have to deal with them as an officer. Figuring out how to, first of all, how you work in corrections. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 6 months to a year in, and then trying to handle these situations. And a lot of that just started to wear on my brain. You know, I kind of grew up, I kind of had low self-esteem as a kid. I was a heavier set individual growing up. So you hear everything that an incarcerated individual can say to you, and they get creative with all kinds of their insults, and you know that starts to wear on you. And then you're with other coworkers who are a lot of times as miserable as the inmates. You know, they're just it's a negative environment a lot of the times, especially in segregation where I was at. So that compounded with all the other traumas that you'd see, suicides, serious assaults, you name it, I've seen it. Um, that just began to wear and tear. And, you know, I'm your typical male, and I just shoved it down. I bottled it up. And of course, you throw a Mentos in a Coke bottle, and eventually it's going to blow up. So, and that's kind of what happened with me. I've never been a big drinker, never like casually out with friends, things like that. But I was coming home and I was drinking a lot. I'd buy a case of beer at the store on the way home and finish it that night just to be able to sleep. So that just added to what was going on in my head, because you're putting a chemical substance in there that is going to make you a little more paranoid. So just those stresses, just it was almost like an out of body experience in a sense, where I can feel the darkness and the negativity starting to overlap my personality. And like, that's naturally, I'm a pretty optimistic person. I try to be, at least. And that negativity just setting in, and, you know, I'm more irritable. I'm having these mood swings that I've never had before. And then, it finally compounded one night to, I was home drinking, and I don't even think I'd worked that day. I think it was my day off, and I was just at home drinking, and I had got it in my mind that, you know, enough is enough. And, you know, that's a thought that had gone through my head several times in the past, but I was like, I'll never, you know, I'm not that type of person. But I just let that darkness encase me and, you know, overwhelm all my other thoughts. And it finally did. And my wife, I don't even know if my wife was home at the time. But I came down the basement. So I'm just going to clean my guns. So I'm cleaning my guns. And at some point my wife must have come home, because as I put the magazine into the pistol and charge that slide forward, and I'm looking at it, and I'm just thinking, it is what it is. And as I'm raising it towards my head, my wife turns around the corner and, "What are you doing?" It just stops me. And of course I'm intoxicated at this point. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm just cleaning my guns." And like, she knew that I was in a dark place, and she's extremely supportive. I'm blessed in that sense. And, you know, obviously it stopped it, but I 1000% believe that if she had not come down to, she said she was just had this feeling to come down to the basement. So she did. And she found me in that state, and I just played off as, "Oh, I'm nothing. I'm cleaning the guns. That's it." And that was just That was the lowest I think I've ever felt. And then I just kind of play it off and I go about my normal business, go, back to work, my daily routine, things like that. And I'm telling an individual I worked with at the previous institution I was at, very good mentor to me. I look at him a lot like a father figure. And I'm telling him this. He's like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I don't remember how the rest of that conversation went. I just remember later on in that shift, he came to get me. He's like, hey, we got to go up front for a second. So they pulled me into the office where the warden and other important individuals were. And they're like, what's this situation that happened? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, my friend he's like, I couldn't live with myself if he actually did something like this. So he went and reported it, rightfully so, which is what should happen. Absolutely 100%. He did the right thing. I got put on leave. And me being the strong-minded individual is I just want to go back to work. I don't want to be off work. I don't want to play the system and have a free vacation. I want to be at work. But they're like, well, you have to go and you have to talk to so-and-so. And I, jump through all the hoops. So I tell this therapist all the things that they want to hear at the time to just let me come back to work. Cause that's all I wanted. Not really fixing any issues, anything like that. So I come back to work and nothing really changes. I'm just going through the same stuff. I'm coming home and I'm drinking and it's not getting any better. If anything, it's getting worse. And finally it came to a point where like, I'm miserable. Like, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I can't sleep at night. First of all, I think I was on midnights at the time. So that's hard enough to sleep, get any sleep you can on midnights, but I can't fall asleep. When I do fall asleep for a few hours, I don't want to get out of bed. Even on my days off, like I just spent my days off in bed because I didn't want to get up. And I let that go on for several years and just didn't do anything about it and just let all the issues at work, the things that we would see and have to deal with, just let that keep compounding and keep shoving it down. And then it took me a long time, but like I basically came to my own realization that like you have to get help. Like it's okay to ask for help. So once I left that institution, came to my current institution, kind of before, but in that process there of transitioning over, I started talking to someone, and she was actually a correctional officer for a couple decades. So she understood a lot of the things I was talking about and going through. So, just talking to her and having her help me give me coping mechanisms that weren't just bottling it up, and just creating a schedule for myself to get my mind back to where it needs to be, back to functioning like
Right.
like me, because that wasn't me.
I remember when you came in, when you first came to work, and we got kind of know each other. We talked, and believe me, you were one of the guys that when you came in the door, kind of like, kind of relief. But really, what I want to tell you is, believe me when I tell you more, this world is a better place with you in it.
Thank you.
So stay strong and just keep going, man. You're good. But do you think when you were at your low point and you said your wife stepped in, do you think that at that point after that it was you started to come out of that and things started to, I don't want to say get better, but maybe you understood a little bit more and you started to come out of that dark place a little bit? Like you almost hit you almost hit rock bottom, and now you figured, okay, she helped you out, and she stopped you from doing something maybe you were going to do, but was you think that was the turning point? I should say.
I want to say yeah, but I continued to stay in that low place for several years after that, where I'm doing stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like my mood swings are off the walls. They go from extreme happy to extreme low and wanting to punch holes through walls. And I have, like, I ripped the door off of its hinges here at home. And like I'm not a violent individual unless I have to be. And then I'm a violent individual, but I'm cool, calm, and collected 99.9% of the time.
Right.
And that I'm as I'm doing, like, as I'm ripping this door off of its hinges, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is not you. I think it was an eye opener. Like, it made me start to think about it more, but I'm also really stubborn. So I wanted to believe that if I just keep shoving it down, it'll be all right. All I need is that next promotion. All I need is, to get that lieutenant spot, or, whatever it may have been. I'll be happy once I get that. But like, it didn't fix anything. It just, if anything, once you promote, it adds more stress. It didn't help me deal with that at all. It was kind of a turning point, but it took me several more years to really try to get help.
I always said that was like I had Pandora's box in my head. Like, you could just open that, like when you walk out that gate, you could just open that up and put it all in there. But you know what? You really didn't. You really didn't. Because that job kept me awake at night.
Yeah.
And it changed me to, people just, like, some people just look at me like, dude, where in the hell did you come from?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't ever want to say I get what, your situation, but I feel your pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
and
that's,
you're actually one that has come to mind in the past. Cause I remember when I was still on OJT and you were like, everybody's heard the term 8 and gate. And you said that during OJT. He's like, you said, you're going to see things and you just have to learn to leave it there. Once you walk through those front gates, leave it there. And it took me forever to actually practice that.
Yeah. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I mean, believe me, us two sitting here talking, and there's a lot of years between the other three and Rick, the one that's not here. There's a lot of experience, and I'm sure there's a lot more that's in Pandora's box that you deal with. So, and again, like, just I just hope, and I think, now, like, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And I hope this is like, I'm glad you reached out. That meant a lot to me, that you've watched us and thought enough of us to say, hey, you know what? I want to share my story. And I think that's the way it should be. People shouldn't be afraid to talk about what's in Pandora's box.
And yeah, you're right. And what it comes down to, and this is my opinion, and you guys all have way more experience than I have, but we're these correctional professionals. We're supposed to be firm, fair, and consistent, tough, nothing bothers us. At the end of the day, we're human. So you can see the worst things happen and it's still going to affect you. But the stereotype is you're supposed to be tough. You don't let it bother you. And I think that was a lot of it. Corrections is the first profession that I've worked in my adult life that I feel like that's what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anything to jeopardize that. So when they put me out on that mental health leave, all I want to do is come back. I don't want anything to jeopardize this career. I love what I do. I'm proud of what I do. My family's proud of what I do. I don't want to mess that up with something like, and then you want to blame yourself when you're in that too. This is my fault that it's happening. When realistically, it's something that a lot of individuals go through. We just don't talk about it. And that's why when you hear about a CO or a correctional professional committing suicide, every one of us has someone that comes to mind that we know that's unfortunately that's happened to. And it's because we don't talk about it. It needs to be talked about more. It needs the stigma behind you're weak if you got to go talk to somebody. It's not weakness. If anything, that's strength. For me, it took several years of being in mental misery to get the courage to go and talk to someone and take me out of my comfort zone and open up a little bit.
So I want to touch on something, if you don't mind. You were talking about some of the things that began to change in you. Can you kind of get more specific about whether it's appearance, did you stop like taking care of yourself or caring about what you looked like? Did you stop? Did your
Sure.
uniform didn't care? Did you, stop worrying about how the house looked? Often turn and mimic the same behaviors of the inmates that were watching. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that because you were saying, next thing you know, the inmates are challenging you, trying to figure out what they can say that's going to get under your skin. Then before you know it, it's not just them, it's the staff members you work with. So there's never this break. You never get it. You never get to, like you said, be a human being, just be yourself, laugh and joke, take the last drink out of your, whatever you're having, Gatorade or soda, and go back to post. You're just constantly on with that bombardment. So can you kind of go down that road of the things that began to change about you physically and other things?
Yeah. 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 So I've always, like I said, I was a heavier set kid growing up. I always played sports. Didn't really get into athletics heavily until high school. I started to lose weight, started work at like lifting weights and everything. My sophomore year, I believe it was, maybe my junior year, I don't remember. So I've always taken pride in working out. When I first started at the prison, I was competing in strongman fairly regularly. I was doing a lot of shows, lifting heavy. I was very, very into it. And as this started to take hold, I was eating the same. You talk about in strongman, you have to be heavy to move heavy weights. So I was eating a lot, but then I'm not really working out a lot because I don't want to get out of bed. So, and then when I would go to the gym, and I just felt like it was forced. And, the gym's always something that I've loved to do. Hunting is always something I've loved to do, and I didn't want to go do any of it. I just wanted to lay around the house, sleep. And that's really all I wanted to do. So I'm sure I put on a lot of weight. I wasn't taking good care of myself, drinking, completely ignoring my wife. Like we might as well have just been roommates at the time. We were only married a couple years when I got into corrections, and we've known each other pretty much most of our lives. She was my junior high crush, so I finally married her, and and she's a saint. She put up with me being this miserable individual. Like, it was like as soon as I walked into a room, I was just a dark cloud that no one wants to be around because I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to engage in any type of social interaction with family. Nothing. I would go, but I'm sitting there and I'm a shell. And I'm kind of a quiet person anyway, so I don't do a lot of talking. But I felt like I was much more withdrawn from anything to do with anyone. And until I would start drinking, and then maybe I'd probably be a lot more animated then, which not good. But yeah, my wife and I, we were pretty much just roommates, and we barely talked, and that was another point of guilt for me because I know that's going on, but I'm like, I don't want to tell her about things at work. Number one, she's not really going to understand it, and I don't want to scare her with the things that that we have to deal with as correctional professionals.
Right.
Because she's always worried whenever I go to work anyway. She ever since I started in corrections, she always worries. So I began to open up to her a little bit, pieces at a time, and she would be very inquisitive. And then I'm a little bit of a corrections nerd. Like, I'm one of those individuals that will go to all these shut down institutions and go visit them. So like, it's the history of corrections, something that's always interested me. So she would ask questions, and she's asking questions, and I'm opening up more. But that took a long time for us to be able to get to as well. Just because I shut down mentally and emotionally. Like, I was just not there.
While those changes were taking place in you, were people pointing that out to you? Did you not self-recognize that was changing about you? And other people saying, hey, you're this, and hey, you're that. You normally don't drink so much, but now you are.
Sure. My wife, she wouldn't at first. She was just trying to be the supportive wife. She knows that it can be a hard job at times. And she would eventually say, do you think you're drinking a little bit too much? Do you really need to drink tonight? Things like that. But I would isolate myself so much from family. I was able to put on a pretty good front, I think. Maybe they would say something differently. But I would put on, I feel like I put a pretty good front on that. They might notice I'm a little more withdrawn, but they know that I'm working a lot of hours and my job isn't always easy. And maybe that's part of it. Um, my relationship with my siblings got a little strained because I'm more irritable, and you're always bickering with your siblings anyway. So that would only enhance to actual fighting. Um, so no one necessarily, other than my wife, really pointed it out that I can recall, other than my friend that um, went and initially talked to work and got me that first little bit of help. But yeah, not a lot of people really said a whole.
Ben, first of all, you're so courageous. What courage you just telling your story and sharing your story with us is something that it means a lot to all of us because like you mentioned we've either known somebody that has done it, we've been involved as leaders in situations like this, and it is the most heartbreaking, most difficult thing that anyone can go through as a friend, as a subordinate, as a peer, as a boss. So, Charlie just, hit it. The world is wonderful because you're still in it. I know it's a journey because it is a journey, right? And the fact that you're still married, which is what my question is surrounded. I mean, kudos to your wife for
Yeah.
sticking around and being there for you, even though when she didn't understand what you were going through, or she doesn't understand your world maybe at the beginning, right? But you did mention that your father was he did a lot of the prison ministry, right?
Yeah.
Did he notice anything? And
If he did, he didn't really say anything that I can recall. My father and I kind of have a unique relationship anyway, where we're pretty much blunt and direct to each other, not in a terrible way. Just that's just kind of our personalities, is we're very straightforward with everything that we say. So I think if he had, I'd remember it. But I can't recall him or my mom ever really saying anything. And maybe they didn't want to. Maybe I had a good enough front that they didn't notice that I'm not just, I mean, like I said, I'm a quiet individual anyway. So maybe they just thought that I was being myself.
right, and then you working lots of hours and yeah. Now, did you grow up in a religious family? I mean, like there was
Yeah.
religion and faith in your family,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Did you look towards that to help you?
Sure. I did. I grew up in the church, as involved as one can possibly get. I mean, my parents worked in ministry. That was their 24/7. That was what they did. Went to a Christian high school. So I grew up with that stuff. So I did revert back to it a little bit, probably not as much as I should have. Sure. Of course, my wife was raised the same way I did. Her parents didn't work in ministry, but she grew up Christian school, in the church. Um, her grandmother actually led to my dad being saved and getting into ministry. So, my wife would push that a lot. Like, we have to go to church. We have to, you should talk to this pastor. Just trying to work it out. And honestly, it was her continuing to tell me to go talk to someone that eventually made me go and talk to the person I talked to the most recent to help me out the most.
No, that's wonderful. That's an old crusty warden once told me that if you're not religious or spiritual, you still have to believe in something, right?
Sure.
And there's I think all of us at some point in time sat back and thought, you know, that greater entity is there. And, you know, we can always look towards that. And me personally, I went through a lot of things too. Certainly not as difficult as the challenges that you went through, but that was something that I will tell you. There were some days where my depression was so severe that I didn't want to get out of bed.
Mhm.
And I shut my family completely out. So, you know, different circumstances, but certainly the same effects. And you know, and who knows, our roads take us down different ends, right? And
Sure.
but I will tell you, faith was one of the things that I turned to during those really, really dark times. And I'm glad that you actually, that you also utilized that as well. And then you had that incredible support from your wife, because that, I will tell you, as a partner, going through the horrible things that we see when we're in corrections at times, and then coming home and believing that your partner doesn't understand what you go through, but you'd be surprised, you know, that
Yeah.
there is a lot that they do understand.
Yeah.
The divorce rate in corrections is so incredibly high.
70%.
Yes. So it's very unusual. I'll use that word, to see, a couple stay married throughout the career of one's career,
That's
right?
that's actually one of the first things my counselor said in one of our first sessions. She's trying to get to know me and my family. And at the time we were married 7 years, and we just hit 8 years last month. And she said, "You're better than 70% of the correctional population, because most don't make it past 7 years."
Right.
And I definitely don't tell my wife enough how much of a blessing she has been to me. Just her patience is probably the biggest thing. And her, like you said, she may not understand everything that's going on, but she's willing to listen, which is probably what's helped me the most out of anything.
Yeah. So, keeper.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, Ben, I got a question. As we stated, and as you noted, correctional professionals absorb so much negative and toxic and aggressive behavior, and they internalize it. And after a while, some will break. They get used to the assaults, the fights, the stabbings, the shanks, the ODs, the self-mutilation, the suicides. But all this is trauma. And if you get over emotional, quick to anger, laughing at stuff that's just not, that shouldn't be funny, abandoning your own life, like you said, get a headache before work, lose interest in life's joys, drinking too much, marriage is suffering, thoughts of suicide, you're off.
Mm-hmm.
As a former complex warden with over 600 staff, I often said, I want you happy, healthy, and productive, in that order. But my question is this: how can agencies better support their staff before it gets to that crisis point?
Well, I've thought about that a lot, and you could up with all these extravagant programs and things like that. And it just comes down to talk about it, like what we're doing right now. Like there's such a stigma around going and finding help and talking to somebody, that a lot of people are afraid to do it. And they don't want to show that weakness, because when we're inside the walls, you got to be that tough individual that nothing phases you. So we take that persona on, and it's okay to show weakness. Just talking about it, making it more, normalize it. The more we talk about it, and the more normal we make it, the more people are going to seek help. I mean, and I'm thankful for you guys having me on here. I hope if my story can resonate with one individual and help them, great. I hope it does. I feel like there's a lot of individuals that have gone through similar stories like mine, maybe worse. And, you know, if it can help just one person by talking about it, fantastic. Let's talk about it some more. I'll talk all day. I've had conversations. Obviously, I'm in a much better place now, with my routines and everything that I do to keep myself sharp. But you know, I try to give other individuals, especially younger officers that are trying to figure out corrections, and see if it's even, you know, even if it's even for them, you know, give them little tidbits and try to help them as much as I can. I'm sure I like I said before, I have a blunt personality, so I'm sure sometimes it doesn't come off as trying to help them, but I am. You know, just talk about it. I mean, the more and getting more information about it, you know, I don't feel like there's enough research and information about corrections and what it can do to an individual until it's, you know, it's too late and that person has taken their life or, you know, something else. And, you know, the more we talk about it, the more information is shared. So that would be my biggest suggestion. You know, every agency has their own employee assistance type program where they say go call this person if you're feeling, you know, call this number and or talk to this person. And it's easier said than done. Like I remember seeing those flyers on different bulletin boards at the institution, and I would like, I'm not doing that. I'm too strong. I don't need to go talk to somebody, until I wasn't, and I needed to talk to someone.
When you made that decision to step up to somebody, did the first person you went to, did they support you? Did they assist you? Or did you run into somebody who maybe wasn't open-minded about directing you to what kind of assistance you needed?
So it was kind of forced upon me at first. You know, when my friend had went and told the higher ups what I told them, and they forced me on that mental health leave. Of course they are receptive to it and they want to find me help. And then, I asked when I eventually came back, I went to an individual that was higher up that could answer this question. And I asked about furthering help. And they said, well, that's not necessarily our responsibility. And I said, but you just put me out on mental health leave. I'm trying to find someone else to go talk to or continue talk to this person. I'm trying to find out how that works. I don't know. I've never done this before. I'm trying to, and she's like, well, what was it that you said that led us to this point? And she was in the room when it had happened. So I told her what had happened in my basement when my wife found it on me. She's like, well, no one told you to do that. And I'm kind of took me back. I'm like, why would anybody come and try to find help if that's how you're going to treat them? Like, and that, like, it ticked me off. Like, I'm like, all right. And I just walked out, and it ticked me off for a long time.
I want to address that. Leadership of the facility and even the employees have to know that when someone is courageous enough to bring something like that up, it's their obligation to sit down and do everything they possibly can to direct that person. And when that person is actually making that commitment to tell their story and to open up, they need to be supportive of it. And they need to know when to step out of the room and make sure that the environment is safe and the person is being given the opportunity to take care. So I'm very sorry that happened. I get a little emotional about that because there's a lot of people, some of us sitting on this channel right now, have needed help in the past. We've reached out to the people we're supposed to, and they don't take it the way that they should. So I apologize for that.
I got that phone call where an officer tried to bang into me, and I knew something wasn't right, you know, the slurred speech, whatever. And I just said, hey, man, are you okay? And this is I remember this conversation today. I was a lieutenant. This was 25 years ago or whatever. And he said, I knew I had to work tonight, Lieutenant, but I still drank a case of beer. That's what he said to me. And I just went, do you need help, man? And you could just tell he's like, yeah, I do. And I had to put him in contact with a psychologist and everything else. But, that's what you said is raw. It's real.
This is the type of topic, and an hour doesn't do it justice because there's so many, you could branch off into so many different areas, and it's just, it just needs to be out there more. Because even when I was at my darkest, I was YouTubing mental health and corrections officers and trying to find stuff. And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot. Now there's a little bit more.
You took that chance, that leap of faith, that courage, you built it up, and you moved forward. Did you feel different? Did you feel like you were actually feeling better about yourself?
So initially, no. Like I said, the first person I talked to, I had to do a few sessions with them. And like I said, I told them what they wanted to hear because I wanted to go back to work. I didn't want to be off work. I've never been one of them ones that try to get some free vacation. I want to go back to work. I love work. So I think I may have seen that person one other time on my own, and that was kind of it. And then I kind of just went on like that for a couple years. And then we were going to a church in town at the time, and they offered Christian counseling. So I was like, well, maybe I should go and try to talk to a Christian counselor. And I did a couple of sessions with that individual, and I felt like they were just talking to me the entire time, and I maybe said 2 sentences. So I'm like, this isn't doing anything. Like I'm not a big person who wants to talk about myself anyway, but I probably need to talk a little bit to make this work. And they weren't giving me the opportunity. So I was like, this one isn't for me. So I went probably another year before I was like, I really need to go talk to somebody. Like I can feel it, at that point it had kind of come down a little bit where I wasn't as agitated. I felt like I was coming out of it. So we just started doing some research online and found a local individual through it's a company, and she was one of their counselors, and it just so happened to line up that she worked in corrections and she could understand a lot of what I was saying. And it lined up perfectly at that point that, I had to try 3 times before I found somebody that could actually understand what I was saying and, the things I was dealing with. But again, if it wasn't for my wife keep saying, hey, go talk to somebody, and keep, and then it's in my mind, you need to go talk to somebody. I probably wouldn't have. I would have let it keep building up.
And have you, obviously, maybe I'm assuming, but you've shared your story with other people, maybe your peers, or they become aware of your journey. How have they reacted towards you?
I've actually not shared this story with many people. You guys are the first, and your viewers are going to be some of the first. There are a select few very close friends that I've shared it with. But other than that, I don't want to say I'm ashamed to have gone through that, but I'm to the point now where like I need to talk about it more. Like I said, if it can help one person, great. So up until I originally reached out to Charlie, I was like, I don't really want to tell anybody. So, but like I said, if it could help somebody, fantastic. If it could help 2 people, even better. But not a lot of people. Like, there's probably people that'll watch this that I've worked with in the past. I'm like, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. No, that is very, very important, because I think, that's the first step in any correctional environment to break that stigma that,
Yeah.
goes along with, you have to be tough, regardless if you're a female or a male. You work in this environment, you have to be tough, and nothing, Teflon-like, nothing hurts you, nothing. Yeah. And that for decades, for centuries, has been the culture of anyone working in corrections. And of course, I'm generalizing it. I think now it's a lot better since, I started back in 91, and it's certainly, a lot better now. But it has a long way to go. And not only, I'm sure that you're going to find that this is therapeutic for you talking about it, because only, all of us on this podcast have some sort of post-traumatic stress from something in our careers. And I find it, and I'm speaking very generally for my brothers here, it is therapeutic to talk about it, and to share that, to find out that we all have that in common, and
Yeah.
it's not a lonely feeling. And I think that is certainly the first step in, again, in any situation, is, to break that stigma, is to talk about it and to let people know that you're not alone. At some point in time, we all go through it.
Yeah, there's been a few instances where I've wanted to share with people, but again, I was afraid to. I actually just told my mom about it like a couple months ago. She didn't even like I never like the incident that happened in my basement. She didn't know. And that was kind of the thinking point of reaching out to Charlie, and I need to start sharing this more because I know I'm not the only one out there that's had to deal with it. And I'm at a great place now and a great mindset where I'm comfortable sharing, especially with the younger, like I said, the younger generation, because they're the future of corrections. That, the more you share with them and make them more aware of the signs of burnout, because that's something that's just so overlooked. You just think you're tired from all the shifts, but like you're very easy to get burnt out, very easy, especially if you're an institution where there's a lot of overtime because you're short staffed. Um, you know, Taking care of yourself, using those vacation days for what they're meant to be, and truly unplug and get away from work and just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, that's right. I know there's been very little research has been conducted, but some studies have shown between 19 and 34% of correctional officers suffer from post-traumatic stress, PTSD. And that's compared to, say, 14% of military veterans and approximately 7% in the general population. So obviously very high. So stop and think about that for a second. At some very active medium to high security facilities, 1/3 of your correctional officers can be suffering right now from PTSD. 1/3 of your correctional officers' complement can be experiencing insomnia and panic attacks and flashbacks and nightmares and hypervigilance, suicidal thoughts, depression, fatigue, just to name a few. Unfortunately, many turn to drug and alcohol to cope. My question to you, Ben, is what would you say to a fellow officer listening right now who feels like they're at their breaking point?
I'll tell them to give it one more day. Give it another day to push through anything you're going through. Reach out and talk to a coworker. Someone. All of us throughout our career have had several individuals that we look up to in the professional sense. They've been a mentor to us. Talk to that person. If I don't want to deter anybody from my incident with the employee assistance programs, but call that employee assistance program. I'm blessed in the sense that my wife is extremely understanding and will listen. Just talk to somebody. I'm willing to listen. Somebody can email me. I'm more than happy to listen. But you can't just let everything that happens bottle up. I kept telling myself one more day. And that kind of helped me come out of my funk a little bit. Force myself to get out of bed, because that was my biggest thing, is I straight to bed from work and then straight from work to bed. That was it. So forcing myself to get up and get back in the gym. Do things that you used to love that you no longer find any enjoyment out of whatsoever. I took several years off from hunting, and I finally got back into it because I love it, and being out in nature. I've created a fairly strict routine for myself. And I can give you guys a brief example of what that looks like. And, a lot of it is different research I've done on my own and from trial and error. But I work second shift currently. So come home, first thing everybody wants to do is lay on the couch and watch TV, or lay on the couch and be on their phone, or lay in bed and watch TV or be on your phone. And that's one of the worst things that you could do. And I'll be honest, I'm still terrible at it. But I'll tell you, the best sleep that I ever get is reading a book before I go to bed. And it sounds stupid and it sounds simple, but put your phone down, turn that TV off, put that laptop down, whatever, an hour before you go to bed, no screen time, and read or meditate or stretch, exercise, whatever. Just get off your phone and relax. So that's one thing I try to do before I go to bed, and get off at 10 p.m., get home 10:30, 11 o'clock, whatever. I don't stay up all night because a lot of second shifters and a lot of third shifters will just stay up. I like to go to bed almost as soon as I get home. That way I can get up in the morning and I can get my daily routine started. If you like, get up and just go for a walk. Sunlight is so incredibly important to your mental health. And, there's a neuroscientist named Andrew Huberman. He says 10 minutes of being in the sunlight first thing in the morning is one of the best things you can do. So I've tried to implement that with a lot of my workouts are outside. Anything I can do to get outside and get some sunlight, and it's extremely beneficial. So I mean, that's just, and then eating right. Most of the people that I work with, and I'm sure it's the same at other institutions, is it's usually just some fast food they grabbed on their way with a bunch of energy drinks and pop. And that's just, I've cut sodas, cut energy drinks out. And like, I only do water and, black coffee. Those are really the only liquids that I drink. Finding a clean, healthy, nutritional diet that's balanced, that will improve your physical health as well as your mental health. So, I mean, those are some things that really, I benefit a lot of that to where I'm at currently. And it's something that adapts all the time. I'll find different research online, and try something. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't, maybe I like a little bit of it, and just implement different things. And it's a continuing process where I try to improve it every day.
So as you're beginning this path of recovery, there had to be a certain point where you realized that things were going to get better. Can you talk about that time and kind of outline that for us?
It was probably my second or third session, with my most recent counselor. And I really can't tell you exactly what she said, but an incident that had impacted me a lot was a death that we had at my first institution. No idea why this death impacted me the most. It's something that I'd probably seen several times before and several times after, but for whatever reason, this one impacted me the most. And she had, I don't remember what the therapy was called, but she had two little paddles that I held in my hand that vibrated. And then she asked me about that incident while these things are vibrating. And she said, my entire skin color changed. I was pure, like, white. And she said she could see the top of my head. I was sweating. And it kind of got into that. And she said, do you think that was your fault? And I said, no. She's like, all she said was, it's not your fault. And I don't know what it was about that, but I remember like a calming sensation kind of going through my body, kind of like goosebumps. I was like, well, yeah, I knew it wasn't my fault, but her telling me that somehow, kind of gave me a little bit of an eye opener. And, things like, that her just verbally telling me that incident or other incidents that we had talked about, they weren't my fault. There's only so much that we can do in every incident. And sometimes they don't go the way that we want them to go. So her telling me that, for whatever reason, just gave me this relaxing sensation. I remember just thinking, like, I feel pretty good. I don't know why, but I do. And from then on, I was almost like a light kind of opened up in my head, and all the darkness that, like Charlie said, the Pandora's box started to push away. And from that point on, it's just, I was hungry to get back to find ways to improve. And I've been like that ever since. And just, I've anything I can do to improve not only my mentality, but everybody around me too. And just every day be better than yesterday. And if you're not,
That's
try
great.
harder.
That's great. Congratulations. That's not easy work. That's hard work. Where are you at right now? How do you see the future?
I'm probably in the best place mentally and physically that I've been in ever with the routine that I've set up for myself. And the things I'm taking from therapy and implementing into my daily life. It's like I have the world is just completely open to me, and it's interesting too, because other people have started to see a change in me. So it's opened up other doorways at work, things that I've always wanted to do and haven't necessarily had the opportunity to do, that I'm getting, the chance to go and try it out. So I'm in such a good place. And, obviously you're not always on top of the mountain all the time. Things happen, it's life. But I feel like I'm so much more prepared now to handle the bad times than I was earlier on in my career when I was in my lowest. So as long as I'm, doing everything that I'm doing now, I have no doubt that I can handle anything that comes my way.
And the good thing is, if it starts to go a different direction, go get the help. And I want you to do me a favor. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to grab that wife of yours, and I want you to give her a big hug on behalf of Corrections Unfiltered, and tell her how proud we are. Yeah, because
absolutely.
Yes,
We're all
that's a great
smiling
lady.
here. We're all
That's
smiling
a great
here.
lady. Yeah.
Ben, your story, your journey is powerful. It's raw. It's real. For correctional officers, traumatic exposures are a part of their job description. And unfortunately, you were in a dark place, but you got help and saw the light. And like you said, and I totally agree with you, seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We must break the mold where seeking help is a sign of failure, frowned upon. This archaic stigma is doing way more damage than it is good. We owe it to our staff, and we must do better. Advocates, awareness, and understanding is a start. Prison reform can address the needs of correctional officers as well as inmates. In corrections, we refer to one another as brothers and sisters. And as we fully support our biological brothers and sisters, similarly, we should fully support our correctional brothers and sisters. By no means am I trying to discourage or disparage any person from working in the most rewarding profession on the face of this earth, but we are sounding the alarm and raising awareness that this can no longer fly under the radar, and it must be addressed. Mental health is as equally important as your physical health and overall well-being. If we recognize the signs and symptoms, support each other, seek help, together, we can greatly reduce this alarming high statistic.
If anybody is feeling any of these types of pressures or feeling any of these types of thoughts, grab your phone, grab somebody's phone, dial 988, and you're going to get the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if they don't take you serious, I want you to find somebody who's going to take you serious. So that way you can get the help. This has been a very powerful and impacting podcast for me. I'm so glad that we had a chance to sit down with you, Ben, because you become one of my heroes. I know you're going to be a person who's going to go out and you're going to share this with other people. And hopefully, like you said, one person, 1,000 people, whoever needs it's going to hear it. And it's going to make them do something so they can start seeking the help that they need to get. So on behalf of Corrections Unfiltered, I want to say thank you, Ben, because you're a hero and you make a difference. And we're glad that we had you on this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks.